changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. You know, I get to read thousands of Chicken Soup for the Soul stories every year, and I'm excited that via this podcast, I get to share some of my favorites with you. It's Motivational Monday, and that means we're going to meet a role model today, someone who I admire for standing up for what's right. So let's talk about what's going on out there in the world. With all the news about bullying and hate crimes, it's clear that some people are not doing a good job of embracing our differences. They need to start thinking about tolerance and how we can get along better with each other and stop all this craziness. Tolerance has to start in our own homes, right? That's where we teach our children and grandchildren the values they will take with them into the outside world. There's a great website called kidshealth.org, and here's what they had to say about tolerance. Teaching tolerance is important, not just because it is part of our American heritage, but because the person who learns to be open to differences will have more opportunities in education, business, and many other aspects of life. In short, your children's success depends on it. Children who are taught to be intolerant don't really become citizens of the world. They don't become adults who can get along with other adults, and their futures are limited. Plus, intolerance is just plain wrong. So that's why I loved a story by Donna Finley Savage in our Mother's Day book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Thanks to My Mom. In fact, I thought this story was so important that I also made it the first story in a book that we made for teenagers that was about tolerance and respect. That book is called Chicken Soup for the Soul, Create Your Best Future. It's one of the components of the Chicken Soup for the Soul Hallway Heroes anti-bullying program that we're rolling out in schools across the country. And why did we include it in a book about creating your best future for teens? Because without being tolerant, I don't think teens can create their best future as adults. In her story, Without Prejudice, Donna tells us how her mom broke out of the mold in which she was raised in the South. Donna says, if my mom had followed the pattern of her mother and grandmother, she probably would have been a racist. Donna's mom grew up with what Donna says was the, quote, typical racial prejudice and segregated lifestyle of white families in Jackson, Mississippi, back in the 1940s, 1950s. But Donna's mom was determined. Prejudice would not continue. She wasn't going to pass it on to her three girls. So she talked about the civil rights movement at the dinner table, and she made it clear to her children where she stood. She stood on the side of tolerance. She prayed for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was jailed. She sent him a letter thanking him for changing the world in which her girls were growing up. And she cried as she watched television with Donna in 1963. And they watched Black children holding their mothers' hands being turned away from schools that were supposed to become desegregated. Donna is grateful to her mom. She says mom's lessons stuck. And now Donna lives in a very different environment. She lives in Nevada, where her husband is the pastor of a church that has a very diverse congregation. Donna says her mom loves visiting her and seeing all the different ethnicities and cultures in their church and among Donna's friends. When we published Donna's story, I decided to start it with a quote from the Talmud. And what it says is, when you teach your son, you teach your son's son. And that's a good lesson for us about passing on the right values to our children, who will in turn pass them on to our grandchildren. Okay, that was a serious story. But tomorrow is Tip Tuesday, and we're going to be a little lighter tomorrow and have some fun with a story about how you can make every day feel like a Friday. I'm Amy Newmark. Thank you for listening to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast today. I hope you'll spread the word by telling your friends. And please show them how to get a podcast on their phone or their computer, because I know there's a lot of confusion out there about this new world of podcasting. And if you'd like to read more about the books I mentioned, the Mother's Day book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Thanks to My Mom, or the inspirational book for teenagers, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Create Your Best Future, please go to our website, chickensoup.com.